It's been 18 years since the last Matrix movie came out, and since that time Keanu Reeves has become the internet's most beloved person and the real-life John Wick. The Wachowski brothers are now the Wachowski sisters, and life has become abundant with meaning and happiness. Just kidding, life is so meaningless and depressing, and with Matrix Resurrections being a sequel to the groundbreaking original and its two confusing ass sequels. Now is a good time to recap the previous 3 Matrix movies so you aren't totally confused while watching Matrix Resurrections. So here it is, everything you need to know before watching Matrix Resurrections. A recap of the Matrix Trilogy, and even though I really shouldn't have to say it, spoiler alerts. So we start our journey with The Matrix, which considering its 1999 release and is essentially live-action anime, probably would have been even more popular if it came out today. The film begins in a rundown hotel, where a woman named Trinity is cornered by police officers for illegally trying to download Squid Game. Despite being outnumbered 6-1, Trinity is able to kick the men's asses with ease, as movie studios just love to shove their perfect little Mary Sue's down audiences' throats, realizing their cover's been blown. A man named Morpheus directs Trinity to a nearby payphone for some reason, with Trinity making her way there post-haste. Trinity is able to shake off the normal police officers no problem, but has trouble shaking off an agent, men known for their dapper suits and even dappier shades. Trinity successfully reaches the payphone and answers the call before one of the agents runs it over with a garbage truck. Rather than finding Trinity's bloody remains as one would suspect, Trinity has pulled a little magic trick on the agents and has disappeared completely. Not all is lost for the men in black, however, as they know that Trinity and Morpheus are looking for a man named Neo. And speak of the little furball, we are introduced to Neo, who, like the rest of us, is just trying to vibe in peace in his apartment. Neo's vibe session is cut short, however, when Neo wakes up to text on his computer telling him that the Matrix has him and to follow the White Rabbits, whatever that means. Neo is visited by a group of really cool ravers, and with one of them having a really cool White Rabbit tattoo, follows him to a really cool rave. While there, Neo is visited by Trinity, who along with warning Neo that he's being watched, tells Neo that she knows he's looking for Morpheus. Trinity also knows that Neo is trying to find the answer to a question bugging him like a poop that just won't come out.
What is the Matrix?
After getting his ass chewed out by his boss for showing up late to work and after contemplating suicide in his cubicle, Neo receives a call from Morpheus, who informs Neo that agents are there to beat him up. Morpheus, who seemingly knows everything that's going on, guides Neo out of his cubicle and into a nearby office, instructing Neo to take a scaffold to the top of the building to escape, and in the most realistic depiction of acrophobia ever, Neo says screw this shit and opts to be arrested instead. While in custody, Neo's interrogated by Agent Smith, one of the agents who was after Trinity at the beginning of the movie, in which we learn that Neo is a computer hacker and that the name Neo is actually his hacker alias. As a result, Agent Smith refuses to refer to Neo as Neo throughout the entire series, opting to refer to him by his birth name instead.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson.
Smith offers Neo a fresh start in return for giving them information on Morpheus, an offer that Neo not so plainly declines. Wanting his phone call, Smith poses the philosophical question of what good is a phone call if you're unable to speak, with Neo's mouth consequently fusing shut, pinning him down. The agents plant a robotic bug into Neo by having it climb through his belly button, causing Neo to wake up from what was clearly just a nightmare. Morpheus rings Neo, who after confessing his love for him,
"You are the one, Neo. You see, you may have spent the last few years looking for me, but I've spent my entire life looking for you."
Tells Neo that he wants to meet up so they can watch anime and cuddle. While waiting under a bridge, Morpheus instructed him to wait under. Neo is picked up by a shady car containing 3 shady passengers, with one of the passengers being Trinity. After taking some precautions, Trinity puts a thingamajig onto Neo's stomach and sucks a robotic bug out of his navel, revealing to both Neo and the audience alike that the interrogation scene was in fact real, and even though he might be in pain now, Neo should just be thankful the thing didn't climb up his ass. Arriving at a shoddy building perfect for late night sexcapades, Trinity introduces Neo to Morpheus, with the excitement of finally meeting his crush clear on Morpheus' face.
At last.
After a little flirting, Morpheus tells Neo that the Matrix is a false reality pulled over his eyes to hide the fact that he's actually a slave born into bondage. Morpheus then offers 2 pills to Neo, with the blue pill bringing him back to his boring, mundane life as a computer programmer, and the red pill bringing him to the now deleted subreddit full of angry and celibate men blaming women for all their problems, and finding nothing funnier than reading dating advice from men who couldn't get laid if their lives depended on it. Neo takes the red pill after having a bad trip. Seriously, what was in that pill? Neo wakes up to find himself in an embryonic pod with tubes attached to his body and an electrical plug attached to the back of his head. On second thought, I think he's still having that bad trip. After realizing that there are thousands of other pods just like his, Neo's confronted by a scary spider robot thing and is flushed down a tube like the big albino turd that he is, ending up in a vat of poopy water. Neo is saved by Morpheus and Trinity, the only difference being that they aren't wearing their cool ass shades anymore, after being stuck with hundreds of hypodermic needles and after growing his eyebrows back, as there's no way anybody could keep a straight face with Neo walking around now looking like this. Morpheus shows Neo around his futuristic hovercraft named the Nebuchadnezzar, and introduces Neo to his ragtag crew of misfits, including APOC, Switch, Cypher, Tank, Dozer, and Mouse, with all these codenames reminding me of the scene from Dodgeball.
Blade. Laser. Blazer.
Using the empty socket in the back of his head, Neo is plugged into a computer program known as the Construct, a convenient place where Neo can learn martial arts, where he can acquire the shit ton of weapons he uses throughout the trilogy, and where he can receive much needed exposition from Morpheus. Speaking of which, it is revealed by Morpheus that around 200 years prior in the year 1999, humans and artificial intelligence went to war with one another, and in an effort to neglect the machines and the solar energy they relied on, humans created electrical storms to blot out the sun.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Well, it didn't, because rather than defeating the machines like they had hoped, humanity was converted to an energy source themselves, being grown in fields and fed the liquefied remains of other humans. Mama's home cooking! Morpheus also reveals to Neo that the Matrix is a computer-generated reality designed by the machines that keep his oblivious human slaves under control. Reacting to this news about as well as you'd expect, Neo panics, pukes up his hot Quaker oatmeal, and passes out. After getting the puke taste out of his mouth, Morpheus tells Neo of a man who, with his abilities to manipulate the Matrix however he saw fit, freed Morpheus and many others from their artificial prisons. Morpheus also informs Neo that the man's return had been prophesied by someone known as the Oracle, and that his return would mark the end of both the Matrix and the war. Morpheus believes that Neo himself is his returning hero, which is why he calls him the One. Morpheus ends the scene by telling Neo to get some rest, as he and his butthole are gonna need it. The next day, Neo is visited by Tank, who along with being Neo's operator for his training courses, is a child of Zion, the last remaining city in the real world located deep underground. Tank gives Neo training in the form of information stored on floppy disks transferred straight to his brain. Neo absorbs the information at an incredible rate, and in a single day becomes a master of Jiu-Jitsu, Savate, Kempo, Taekwondo, drunken boxing, and of course,
I know Kung Fu.
Morpheus tells Neo to prove it, Pepe, and an epic fight sequence commences, in which Neo learns a valuable lesson. He must free his mind and let go of limitations the same way Morpheus and Trinity have, so that he can pull off the same impossible moves they can and become the One. Neo also learns a valuable lesson that bumps and bruises he sustains in the Matrix carry on to the real world, so if he dies in the Matrix, there's no coming back, Kimosabe. It's also useful to know that in the instance where somebody's unplugged or there's power failure while they're in the Matrix, they'll die as well. With the last bit of exposition, Morpheus explains to Neo that agents are sentient programs who, along with being incredibly fast and incredibly strong, are programmed to protect the Matrix at any cost. Agents also have the unique ability to transfer into the bodies of any person still plugged into the Matrix to do their own bidding, in order to free everyone from the Matrix. Morpheus tells Neo that he will have to confront and defeat the agents, a seemingly impossible task that Morpheus ensures Neo will succeed at, because despite the agents having superhuman speed and strength, Neo can and will be faster and stronger than them, as the agents' abilities are based on limits, whereas Neo's abilities are not. And yes, this is the scene where the "what if I told you" meme originated from. Neo Company plugged themselves into the Matrix so that Neo could see the Oracle, but not before Cypher strikes a deal with Agent Smith, in which he will give the agents Morpheus in return for being put back into the Matrix, as he's grown tired of eating Quaker oatmeal every day. Arriving at the Oracle's apartments, Neo is surprised to learn that the all-seeing guide is not a man, but a woman, and not just any kind of woman, but a sassy black woman to boots. After flirting with Neo and teasing him for being a little stupid,
"You're cuter than I thought. Not too bright, though."
Oracle gets a better look at Neo, in which she breaks the bad news to him that he's not the One. That's helpful. Neo and company make their way back to the real world. Before they could do so, however, the group is ambushed by police officers and agents, as Cypher marked their location with his cell phone. During the ambush, the agents and the police officers capture Morpheus and kill Mouse, with Mouse at least having the decency to go out like Tony Montana and Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend!
Having intentionally separated himself from the group, Cypher makes it back to the real world and goes on a killing spree in which he kills Tank, Dozer,
Double kill.
APOC,
Triple kill.
and Switch.
Overkill.
And before Cypher could pull the switch on Neo and earn,
Kill-tacular.
Tank rises from the grave and puts Cypher in his place. Having returned to the real world, Neo and Trinity are faced with the harsh reality that they'll have to pull the plug on Morpheus, as he knows the codes to Zion's mainframe, and it's just a matter of time before the agents get the information out of him and destroy humanity's last remaining city. Having said their goodbyes, Neo prevents Tank from pulling the plug on Morpheus, because despite the fact that Morpheus is being held prisoner by military-grade security and 3 agents, Neo thinks there's a chance they can save him, goddammit. In an effort to save their mentor and father figure, Neo plugs himself into the Matrix with Trinity Trinity accompanying him as well. While torturing Morpheus, Agent Smith begins monologuing and describes the first version of the Matrix as a disaster, as it was a perfect world that its inhabitants believed to be an impossibly good dream and kept trying to wake up from, comparing humanity to a virus with he and the other agents effectively being the cure, and confessing that he actually hates the Matrix and wants to destroy Zion so that he can complete his task and be deleted as a result. And considering that all Agent Smith wants is for his suffering to end and to die already, it turns out that Smith is quite human after all. Neo and Trinity enter the high-rise where Morpheus is being held prisoner and start mowing down motherfuckers, taking out the military-grade security in one of the most badass action scenes in cinematic history. And I'm not even exaggerating. This scene is fucking badass. Riding the elevator cable to the top of the high-rise, as riding the elevator up normally wouldn't have been cool enough. One of the most badass action scenes in cinematic history is followed up by one of the most iconic action scenes in cinematic history, when Neo dodges bullets in slow motion with an effect still widely known today as bullet time. Jack in a helicopter GTA style, Neo saves Morpheus from the agents and saves Trinity from the crashing helicopter, with both sequences featuring, you guessed it, even more badass slow motion. Having just saved Morpheus and Trinity with the odds stacked against him on both occasions, Neo starts thinking that there might be some truth to this fake crap after all, because despite the Oracle telling him that he wasn't the one, Morpheus assures Neo that the Oracle told him exactly what he needed to hear, as there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Reaching a payphone, Morpheus successfully transfers himself back to the real world with an effect that finally explains why these people are so damn obsessed with reaching landlines throughout the movie. Their obsession with sunglasses and black clothing, though, remains a mystery.
I guess we'll never know.
Trinity transfers back to the real world as well, with Agent Smith showing up and destroying the payphone, leaving Neo to take on Smith himself, now believing that he's the one. Neo stands up to Smith but gets his ass kicked anyway. A grim ending to be sure, but at least there's more bullet time to cheer us up, with Smith pinning Neo down in an oncoming train about to kill the hero and relieve the villain of his duties. Neo uses his training and self-belief to escape Smith's clutches and defeat him, only for another one to appear hot on his tail.
Another one.
Neo evades the agents and makes his way to a landline to transfer back to the real world, where robots known as Sentinels are cutting their way into the Nebuchadnezzar to end this fiasco once and for all, with no weapons in their possession to defend against the invading robots. Morpheus has no choice but to set EMP to explode in the hope that Neo makes it back in time, ending where it all began. Neo arrives to the shoddy hotel featured at the beginning of the movie and enters the room with a ring and phone, only to have Smith unload a full clip into his chest and kill him. With sparks flying and no hope in sight, Trinity confesses her love for Neo and kisses him, bringing him back to life with the power of love, baby. With the power of self-belief and the power of love, Neo can now see the Matrix for the code that it is, and being able to bend the Matrix code to his will and now being able to see it. Neo activates God mode and has become truly invincible, blocking Smith's attacks without breaking a sweat and even stopping bullets in midair. Harken back to this line earlier in the film.
What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets?
No, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to.
Along with activating God mode, Neo disables clipping and enters Agent Smith's body, doing something to his code that results in him going out like Pennywise, with the Sentinels having made their way through the Nebuchadnezzar's hull. Morpheus sets off the EMP and Neo makes his way to the landline and back to the real world right in the nick of time, where he and Trinity share a passionate kiss. Only this time with Neo being, alive. The film ends with Neo leaving a message inside the Matrix summoning those who, like himself at the beginning of the movie, are looking for answers as to what is the Matrix. And after donning his cool ass shades, flies off into the clouds with an endless supply of powers that are best left to our imaginations and are hopefully never presented in force-ass sequels, because if they are, it is certain to lead in disappointments. Son of a bitch. Alright, let's get this over with. This leads us to Matrix Reloaded, which starts off interestingly enough with Trinity flying out of nowhere kicking some security guards' asses, all while wearing a tight leather outfit and cool ass shades. We then see Trinity jump out of a window and fire at an agent, with the agent jumping after her kamikaze style. After about 17 missed shots, the agent finally manages to hit Trinity and we see a body crash into a car below. And even though Matrix Reloaded kinda sucks, they weren't stupid enough to kill off one of their most interesting characters 2 minutes into the movie, as Neo wakes up and is revealed to have been all a dream. Back in the Matrix, Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus arrive at a meeting consisting of other hovercraft crews who, like the Nebuchadnezzars, are also obsessed with making fashion statements. During the meeting, a hovercraft captain named Niobe details that the robots are drilling towards Zion to attack, with an army 250,000 Sentinels expected to reach humanity's last remaining city in only 72 hours. Despite having direct orders to have all the hovercraft return to Zion, Morpheus requests that one of them stay behind to receive a message from the Oracle, as messages from the Matrix can't be received while inside Zion, and he expects the Oracle to contact them at any moment. A hovercraft aircraft named the Caduceus agrees to stay back, captained by none other than boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. Having acquired spidey senses since the first movie, Neo recognizes the distinct sound of Oxford dress shoes on pavement and knows that agents are coming and heads upstairs. 3 agents bust through the door leading to the meeting downstairs, none too pleased to see that the one is standing in their way, and even though they themselves have also acquired upgrades since the first movie.
Upgrades.
Neo defeats the 3 agents with ease and flies off like Superman to find the Oracle. Neo arrives to the Oracle's apartment only to find that she is not there, with the Nebuchadnezzar subsequently returning to Zion. Neo is greeted by some kid known only as the Kid in the 2 movies that he's in, as the Wachowskis totally forgot to give him a name. We learn that the kid was freed from the Matrix by Neo sometime between Matrix 1 and 2, and that he wants to serve on the Nebuchadnezzar, but considering that he's only 16 and that he is not old enough, Neo company tell him to piss off and he scurries away even faster than he appeared. Back in the Matrix, we see 2 of the Caduceus' crew members crash through a glass ceiling and run away like they just saw a skinwalker, as they have a message from the Oracle and need to get it to Neo ASAP, after one of the guys successfully transports back to the real world. It is revealed that what they were evading was much more terrifying and cooler than the skinwalker, that being Agent Smith.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
And even though it doesn't make sense how Smith is still alive after what Neo did to him at the end of the first movie, I'm not complaining, as he's the best thing about these damn sequels. Remembering the magic trick Trinity pulled on him during the first movie, Agent Smith performs a little magic trick himself and transforms the other guy into, well, himself. The new Smith secretly picks up the ringing phone and transfers himself into the real world. That can't be good. Back in the real world, Roy Jones Jr. gives the Oracle's message to Neo detailing her location, and needing her guidance more than ever and having really missed her sass. Plugs in to see her again post-haste. Having relocated to Chinatown since the rent was cheaper, Neo is greeted by Seraph, who along with being comprised of a code different from any other Neo has seen before, is also a badass himself. With he and Neo getting into a little scuffle, Seraph apologizes for the random confrontation, as the Oracle has a lot of enemies and he had to be sure that Neo is the one. Neo brings up the good point that he could have just asked, but if Seraph had done that, then there would have been even less reason for this random fight scene happening in the first place. Having a few tricks up his sleeve, Seraph opens a door leading to a mysterious hallway full of other doors, each of which leading to different parts of the Matrix. Seraph opens one of the doors with Neo finding the Oracle waiting him on the other side. After letting her get a look-see,
My goodness, look at you.
it is revealed during a very exposition-dense conversation that both the Oracle and Seraph are programs that are not human, that Neo has the Oracle's sight and that his dream of Trinity being shot at the beginning of the movie is actually a vision in the future, and that he will have to choose between saving Trinity's life or letting her die. The Oracle also explains that Neo must go to the Matrix's mainframe, aka the source if he is to save everyone, and in order to get there, he will need help from the Keymaker, an old program being held prisoner by an even older program called the Merovingian. The Oracle gives Neo the Merovingian's location with her and Seraph heading off. Before he could do so himself, Neo is greeted by Agent Smith, who states that when Neo defeated him at the end of the first movie, a piece of Neo's code was copied over his own, going to explain how he knew where Neo was and why he's able to make copies of himself. As a result of this defeat, Agent Smith was replaced by the upgraded agent Neo fought earlier in the film and was freed from his duties. And even though Neo indirectly granted Smith the freedom he desperately wanted during his monologue with Morpheus, it was achieved so via defeats, which is a slice of humble pie that Agent Smith just can't bring himself to swallow. Pride, just another way that Agent Smith is quite human after all, wanting revenge. Smith surrounds Neo with 7 copies of himself and tries overriding him. But being the one and all, Neo is able to resist, and he and the 8 Smiths get into a big ol' fight. And considering the fact that Neo is the one and that he is essentially Superman, it's a wonder why he bothers to fight Smith and doesn't just zap him away with his heat vision. Neo is able to defeat the hateful 8 with ease in a fight scene that although is pretty cool, it's also a little silly, but it's a far cry from the silliness that's about to come next, as the fight scene goes full retard when 100 other Smiths show up and Neo defeats them in a sequence featuring really bad CGI that looks more like clay figurines than actual people. And this isn't a simple case of the CGI having aged over time, as it looked bad from the start, which is ridiculous given how good the CGI in the Lord of the Rings movies has held up, which came out around the same time as Matrix 2 and 3 and had similar budgets. Proof that everything that happened after the first Matrix movie was better left to our imaginations. Neo flies off and this cringe fest and bad CGI mercifully comes to an end. This cringe fest leads to another, however, as Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity meet the Merovingian at a restaurant, who along with really liking the French language.
Nom de Dieu, de putain de bordel de merde de saloperie de connard d'enculé de ta mère. It's like wiping your ass with silk. I love it.
Causes a woman to have an orgasm with a piece of special cake he made himself.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
I'll have what she's having.
Neo Company tell the Merovingian to hand over the keymaker, but Frenchie refuses. And considering that he's a self-proclaimed trafficker of information who knows everything he can, including that Neo is essentially God with the Matrix being his domain, the fact that the Merovingian thinks he could defeat Neo might be the stupidest thing about the scene. Having to go to the little boy's room, the Merovingian bids Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity adieu with the three heroes leaving empty-handed. It doesn't take long for their luck to turn around, however, as the three amigos are stopped by the Merovingian's wife Persephone, who, along with doing absolutely nothing during the last scene, tells them to follow her if they want the keymaker, leading them to the little boy's room. The Merovingian is not taking a piss like he said he'd be. Persephone expresses her hatred for Frenchie that I'm sure is mutual with the audience. She also expresses the audience's mutual attraction to Keanu Reeves by requesting a kiss from Neo, and being the dirty dog that he is. Neo kisses Persephone in front of Trinity without hesitation. Just kidding. Neo actually feels really bad about it and he kisses Persephone because he has no other choice, leading them through the restaurant's kitchen. Persephone closes a random set of servers' doors, puts a special key into them, and opens the doors again, this time to the Merovingian's elegant chateau. Persephone has the trio follow her to the Merovingian's secret sex dungeon, where he's keeping the keymaker prisoner. Poor guy. The Merovingian shows up with his band of goons to see Neo and company leaving with the keymaker, and he is not happy to say the least. Persephone says that this is all a matter of cause and effect, with the cause being the Merovingian going to the women's bathroom instead of the men's to get his baguette baked. The Merovingian removes two creepy albino twins from the collars and has them go after the keymaker, and having just escaped the Merovingian's sex dungeon with his butthole not being able to take in more punishments, the keymaker runs for his life.
I cannot go back.
Morpheus and Trinity run after the keymaker while Neo stays behind to take on the Merovingian's goons. These are not your ordinary goons, however, as they are able to pull off the same gravity-defying moves that Neo can pull off, all of which I'll explain later. Neo eventually kills the Merovingian's goons and he chases after the over-the-top Frenchman, only for him to vanish behind the doors they entered the chateau with in the first place, running away from the albino freaks with Morpheus and Trinity following. The keymaker uses a special set of keys to open a door leading to a parking garage. Morpheus and Trinity are unable to close the door on the pursuing albinos, because along with them being impervious to pain, they can phase through solid objects like ghosts, which makes their pale appearance and white clothing actually a little fitting. The shaved hairline though is still ridiculous. Neo tries getting involved, but one of the albinos closes the door on him and Neo ends up stranded in the mountains a second time. Neo learns from the Nebuchadnezzar's operator that Morpheus, Trinity, and the keymaker are 500 miles away and he flies off in their direction. The keymaker hotwires a car with the skills he learned planning to escape from the sex dungeon with Trinity and Morpheus hopping in, inciting a car chase with the albinos. During the chase, agents get involved. Trinity recreates a shot from Terminator 2, and Morpheus gets to be a total fucking badass, taking out the albinos with a katana and a fully automatic Glock. Trinity gets away on a motorcycle and Neo saves Morpheus and the keymaker in the nick of time. Trinity reconvenes with Neo, Morpheus, and the keymaker, and they make a game plan to get Neo to the source with Niobe and another hovercraft captain named Soren being there as well. The keymaker explains that to get to the source, Neo will have to open a special door in the mysterious hallway he and Sarah traversed earlier, which is located on a secret floor of a building where no elevator can go or no stair could reach. Unlike the other doors in the hallway, the one leading to the source can only be opened when power to the aforementioned building's been knocked out. Niobe and her crew are tasked with going to a power plant to knock out the building's power, while Soren and his crew are tasked with going to another power plant to prevent the backup generators from doing their thing. Should be easy enough. With his dream of Trinity falling and the Oracle's words that it was actually a vision of the future still fresh on his mind, Neo asks Trinity to stay out of the Matrix. And seeing Neo express a certain amount of concern for the first time ever, let alone emotion, Trinity hesitantly but ultimately accepts his request. Everyone plugs in and everything goes according to plan. But as they say, all good things must come to an end, as the Sentinel shows off its throwing arm by flinging a bomb at Soren's hovercrafts, killing him and his crew before they could turn off the backup generators. With the plan doomed to fail with his backup generators still on, Trinity has no choice but to plug in despite Neo's wishes, where she flies out of nowhere, kicks those security guards' asses. Hey, this looks familiar. The keymaker proves that his name's not total bullshit and makes a key to the source. With he, Neo, and Morpheus enter the mysterious hallway, all while being completely unaware that the backup generators are still on. To everyone's surprise except the audience's, Agent Smith awaits them, and being a rambunctious scallywag enjoys engaging in mild amounts of tomfoolery. He has a dozen or so of his clones attack Neo and Morpheus. Call it Attack of the Clones or something, I don't know.
I don't like sand.
With Trinity having successfully turned off the backup generators and Niobe having knocked out the power, the keymaker opens the door leading to the source with Neo and Morpheus flying through, but not without the keymaker getting shot and killed by the Smiths. And along with making a key to the source and knowing all the details to this elaborate ass heist, it seems that the keymaker's ultimate purpose was to be turned into Swiss cheese as well.
It is my purpose. It's the reason I'm here.
See, I told you. This leads us to the one scene in all three movies you probably need recapped and explained the most. The one scene that is the primary reason you're watching this video in the first place. This scene. The scene where Neo is transferred to the Source and speaks to the Architect, the creator of the Matrix, who along with being dressed like Colonel Sanders, speaks in such an obtrusively complicated manner that the scene was spoofed in both Scary Movie 3 by the late great George Carlin, and by Will Ferrell for the 2003 MTV Movie Awards hosted by Justin Timberlake and Sean William Scott.
Ergo, concordantly, vis-a-vis, you know what? I have no idea what the hell I'm saying. I just thought it would make me sound cool.
It's funny how the people who would give the best example of how to do exposition in a movie would also give the worst example of how to do exposition in a movie, as I had to watch this scene 8 goddamn times to piece everything together. So, to start off, the Architect explains that the first version of the Matrix, which was designed to be a perfect world where everyone lived in harmony, was a failure, as people's minds believed it to be too good to be true and rejected it, which corroborates what Agent Smith said while torturing Morpheus. The second version of the Matrix was the polar opposite and can be best described as a nightmare, as vampires and ghosts alike roamed the streets and provoked fear in those unfortunate enough to be plugged into the Matrix at that time. This is exactly why the Merovingian's goons were able to pull off gravity-defying moves earlier in the film. Not because they went through the same rigorous training that Neo did in the first movie, but because they were goddamn vampires. Which means that the albino twins were literal ghosts as well. The reason for the shaved hairlines though is still a mystery.
I guess we'll never know.
The third version of the Matrix, which is the version that Neo experienced and is the version that the Architect has stuck with since, was overall a success, because not only did it struck the Goldilocks balance of being not too good and not too shitty, but it differed from the previous two versions and it gave its residents the ability to choose whether or not to believe in their artificial surroundings, a solution given by the Oracle herself. Despite its success, version 3 of the Matrix has one major flaw that the Architect has been able to find a solution to, that being Neo, as he is a byproduct of this choice. And even if you've been able to follow along so far, strap in, as this is when things get real mindfucky. The Architect says there have been 5 previous versions of Neo and that this version, the version we got to see fall in love with Trinity and fall in love with Morpheus, is the 6th version. The Architect also states that Zion has been attacked and ultimately wiped out by the machines 5 previous times, with this attack marking the 6th. And last but not least, the Architect explains that for each of the previous instances Zion was wiped out, the Neo that was alive at that time selected 23 people to restart Zion, with each of these cycles lasting about 100 years, meaning that it's much later than the year 2199 as Morpheus said during the first movie. Another thing that Morpheus said during the first movie that could no longer be true is that he was saved by one of these versions of Neo, as Morpheus would have to be at least 100 years old for this to be true. And rather than this being a case of Morpheus lying to Neo and throwing an interesting curveball into the narrative, this is just a simple case of Wachowskis contradicting the lore established in the first movie, not giving a shit. So, to recap, the Matrix only works when people are given a choice whether or not to believe in it, with 99% of its inhabitants choosing to believe and 1% choosing not to believe. This 1% of non-believers eventually make their way out of the Matrix and help grow Zion from 23 inhabitants to many more. And when Zion gets to be too big and poses too much of a threat, the machines come in and clean up shop, with whatever version of Neo existing at that time choosing 23 people to restart Zion again. And the reason that the Architect allows all of this happen in the first place is that he doesn't have a better solution to run the Matrix. The Architect knows full well about Neo's vision of Trinity dying and gives him a choice between walking through the left door or the right door, with the left door allowing him to save Trinity, but in turn allowing humanity to die, as the Matrix needs Neo's code for some reason, to restart the mainframe for some reason, or everyone plugged into the Matrix will die for some reason, and the right door leading him to choose 23 people to restart Zion and letting Trinity die, but in turn allowing humanity to survive through the Matrix, albeit as slaves born into bondage and fed the liquefied remains of other humans, which again, is a bad thing. Neo counters with a good point that the machines would never give him a choice that would result in the death of everyone in the Matrix, as they depend on humans to survive, with the Architect saying that there are levels of survival they are prepared to accept. And considering his indifferent demeanor as to whether or not Neo picks the left door or the right door, it makes you question why he proceeds to carry out this overly complicated ruse in the first place. And in case this overly complicated ruse wasn't overly complicated enough, it is revealed that the path of the One was designed to not only lead Neo to the source and to this drudge of a scene, but that it was designed for him to create a bond with humanity, so that he would be more likely to choose the right door when given the choice. This is why Neo has his powers as well, as they are granted to create a messiah complex within him that would make him more likely to choose the right door when faced with a decision. And despite having the cards stacked against him to do the same thing as 5 predecessors did in choosing the right door, Neo chooses the left door anyway, because unlike the 5 versions before him, there is something that he loves even more than humanity itself, that being the sight of Carrie Ann Moss and tight leather. Speaking of which, Trinity is fighting an agent in the same sequence shown at the beginning of the movie. What wasn't shown, however, is Neo swooping in to grab Trinity with the agent's body crashed into the car below. It seems like the Wachowskis pulled a little sneaky on us.
See, I pulled a sneaky on you.
laying Trinity's body down and being able to manipulate the Matrix however he sees fit. Neo scoops the bullet out of Trinity's abdomen like a scoop of ice cream, but she dies anyway. In which Neo says, "Oh, I don't think so," and uses his unlimited power to kickstart Trinity's heart, sharing a passionate kiss in a scene mirroring the ending of the first movie. A noteworthy example of good writing, as it would have been very easy to overlook Neo's powers and for Trinity to have unnecessarily died. A noteworthy example of bad writing though is Trinity jumping out of that window in the first place, because considering the already established rule that dying in the Matrix will also result in you dying in the real world and that she is not Neo. How did Trinity plan on surviving this? Neo and Trinity reconvene with Morpheus in the real world, but their happy reunion is short-lived however, as a Sentinel throws a grenade at the Nebuchadnezzar and takes it out, but not without the hovercraft sensing what was going on and all of our heroes escaping. Being able to feel the Sentinels, Neo turns around and stops the Sentinels dead in their tracks as if he were still plugged into the Matrix, passing out from the newfound ability still coursing through his body. The Nebuchadnezzar's former crew picked up by another hovercraft known as the Hammer, where it is revealed that during an attempt to blockade the machine's incoming attack on Zion, an EMP was detonated and 5 hovercrafts were destroyed. And if that weren't suspicious enough, the Hammer only found a single survivor, and you won't believe who it was. Damn, who's this guy again? Oh yeah, it's the guy Agent Smith copied over and transferred into the real world with. How could I forget? And finally, Matrix Revolutions, which picks up right where Matrix Reloaded left off with Neo unconscious alongside the guy Agent Smith transferred himself into. Despite not being plugged into the Matrix, Neo's neural patterns resemble somebody who is, which goes to explain why Neo is able to destroy the Sentinels outside of the Matrix. Actually it doesn't, because unless Neo has some antennas hidden on his head to transmit these neural patterns in the form of a signal to control said Sentinels, this sequence doesn't make any damn sense. Neo wakes up in heaven and sees God standing before him, who has surprisingly taken the form of a little Indian girl.
Good morning.
Just kidding, it's just a little Indian girl. And rather than waking up in heaven, Neo finds himself in a train station named Mobile Avenue, which is located somewhere between the Matrix and the real world. Neo learns from the little girl's father that the train station is ran by the Train Man, a program who works for the Merovingian. And considering that the Merovingian is still pissed off at Neo for killing his army of vampires, aka his army of darkness, Neo might be stuck here for a while. After getting a call from Seraph, Morpheus and Trinity plug into the Matrix to see the Oracle, who has surprisingly taken the form of a second sassy black woman, as the sassy black woman who played the Oracle in Matrix 1 and 2 passed away before filming her scenes for Matrix 3. The Oracle informs Morpheus and Trinity of Neo's tough predicaments, and tells them that they need to find the Train Man, with Seraph knowing his location. Seraph leads Morpheus and Trinity to the Train Man, who is not so surprisingly on a train.
Well, I could have told you that.
And even though Train Man is not an entirely inaccurate name for him, there's a couple more fitting names that I can think of.
You know, he's a hobo.
Hobo.
As you might call him. I don't like that term. Whatever.
Tramp or whatever, what have you.
Railroad bum.
Armed with a revolver, Railroad Bum takes off with Seraph, Trinity, and Morpheus right behind the stench, managing to escape in a sequence featuring not one but 2 distinct Powerade ads.
Powered up with Powerade! Get the rush out of life!
Back on Mobile Avenue, Railroad Bum shows up with a little girl and her family boarding the train leading back to the Matrix. Neo tries to board the train as well, but the smelly vagrant doesn't inhabit any of it, punching Neo to last Tuesday because he's the one who calls the shots down here. To find out where Neo is and to engage in some late night sescapades, Morpheus, Trinity, and Seraph show up to the Merovingian's nightclub appropriately named Hell, as it's pretty much just a depiction of the Wachowskis' deepest sexual fantasies. Hellish to say the least. Before doing so, however, they get into a shootout with a bunch of guys who can walk on walls for some reason in a sequence desperately trying to capture the magic of the first movie. A goal that the Wachowskis would fall short of, unfortunately, as it's hard to take anything seriously with those damn GIMP outfits. Surrounded by the Merovingian's GIMP army, Morpheus, Trinity, and Seraph surrender their weapons and speak to the pompous prick, who promises to give them Neo in return for the Oracle's eyes. And by the Oracle's eyes, he doesn't mean her actual eyes, mind you, but her ability to see the Matrix's code and into the future. And before he can even begin elaborating on how this would even be possible, Trinity says, "I don't have time for this shit," with her, Seraph, and Morpheus kicking and screaming their way into a Mexican standoff. Trinity tells the Merovingian that she'll grant him a third eye via bullet hole if he doesn't give up Neo, and liking his forehead just the way it is, grants a crazy bitch her wish with the 2 lovebirds reuniting and returning to the Matrix. Needing her guidance and sensing they won't get another chance to speak with her, Neo visits the Oracle, who, despite having kept a lot of secrets from him, ensures Neo that she wants the war to end the same way that he does, with Zion set to be destroyed in only a few hours. The Oracle tells Neo that he have to go to a place known as Machine City if he is to save Zion, a location he has had visions of up until this point. She also tells Neo that in order to save humanity's last remaining city and to end the war, he will have to defeat his arch nemesis, Agent Smith, whose motive motives have shifted from simply wanting freedom to wanting revenge on Neo to total world domination. And speaking of the devil, Smith finally meets the Oracle, who, along with finding it very fishy that the Oracle is just sitting there despite knowing full well that he was coming, throws a plate of chocolate chip cookies to prove his point.
Maybe you knew I was going to do that. Maybe you didn't. If you did, that means you baked those cookies and set that plate right there deliberately, purposefully, which means that you're sitting there also deliberately, purposefully.
Similar to the Merovingian, Smith wants the Oracle sight because, as she herself said in the second movie,
what do all men with power want? More power.
Outmatched by his epic might, the Oracle allows Smith a copy of her without a fight, all while Smith laughs with glee over his newly acquired abilities. Seriously, Hugo Weaving is a national treasure. Back on the Hammer, the guy Smith transferred himself into finally wakes up from his nap, with the guy's name being Bane. The Hammer's crew asks Bane what happened when the EMP taking out 5 hovercraft was set off, with Bane insisting that he does not remember. All while this actor does his best impression of this guy being taken over by this guy played by this guy.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
The Hammer finds Niobe in her hovercraft and give it a jumpstart, in which we learn that Niobe and Morpheus used to be a couple, but that everything changed when Morpheus found the one, and considering that Morpheus transitioned from the horrible, cheating Jada Pinkett Smith to the amazing, wonderful Keanu Reeves. Because after all, that's the real love story of the series. I honestly find the whole situation to be a big upgrade for Morpheus.
Upgrades.
In a mutual agreement, it is agreed that Morpheus and Niobe will take the Hammer back to Zion, while Neo and Trinity will take Niobe's hovercraft to the Machine City. A good plan, assuming that Bane doesn't kill the Hammer's medic and sneaks his way onto Niobe's hovercraft to kill Neo and Trinity as well. Seriously, let's hope that doesn't happen. Knowing that he might never come back, Morpheus says goodbye to Neo, insisting that the honor of having met him is still his, and the scene harken back to their very first meeting.
It's an honor to meet you.
No. The honor is mine.
It was an honor, sir.
No, the honor is still mine.
While fixing a misplaced fuse, Trinity is ambushed by Bane, who despite violently kicking him in the face multiple times, still manages to lose, because if she had won, there'd be no reason for this reunion to occur, where it takes Neo a ridiculous amount of time to realize that Bane is Agent Smith despite the fact that weird shit has already happened outside the Matrix, and that Bane refers to him as Mr. Anderson 6 goddamn times.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
With Trinity's arms tied behind her back, Neo and Bane get into a seizure-inducing fight where Bane grabs an electrical cord and burns Neo's eyes to a crisp, taunting him and ready to land the killing blow. Neo dodges Bane's swing, as he can still see him despite having been blinded. With the tables turned, Neo pulls a low Uno reverse card on his ass and lands the killing blow himself. Back on the Hammer, Niobe pilots a hovercraft through normally untraversable tunnels back to Zion, as she is the best damn pilot they have. She's also one of those cliched tough chicks who talks like a dude.
Shit, she's got a fat ass.
Back in Zion, the machines have reached humanity's last remaining city and quickly overwhelm their defenses, jamming the gates to prevent the Hammer from coming through. This doesn't last for long though, as the kid, remember me mentioning him earlier in the video, shoots the gate open with the Hammer coming through, setting off its EMP and destroying all of the nearby Sentinels. But considering that the EMP destroyed Zion's last remaining defenses along with the Sentinels, this does nothing but delay their inevitable defeat. That is unless of course Neo can pull a miracle out of his or Trinity's ass. Speaking of which, Neo and Trinity have arrived at the Machine City, and despite being blind, Neo could see his fields of human slaves being grown. Getting closer to the city's center, the machines unleash all-out hell on Neo and Trinity's hovercrafts, flinging hundreds of bombs their way and sicking Sentinels on them as well. Using his inexplicable abilities, Neo destroys the bombs but is quickly overwhelmed and cannot destroy the Sentinels, instructing Trinity to fly up towards the electrical storms and zap them off. This strategy works but also causes the hovercraft to shore down and crash land, with Trinity being fatally wounded as a result. With her last words, Trinity tells Neo how much she loves him and how much he means to her. She also tells him to pick up some milk at the grocery store, as it takes her like 15 minutes to die despite being turned into a shish kebab. Joking aside though, it's an emotional scene featuring great acting from Carrie and Moss and downright underrated acting from Keanu. Feeling his way around, Neo makes his way to the center Machine City where he's confronted by the Deus Ex Machina, who is the actual creator of the Matrix as he created the architect himself. And even though Neo might be missing his eyes right now, it's a good thing that he can't see the Deus Ex Machina, as he looks stupid as hell. And since the Deus Ex Machina was designed to literally look like a baby, I'll call him Baby Babyface from here on out. Neo offers to defeat Smith, and Babyface promises to stop the attack on Zion. And considering that Smith has copied over essentially every resident of the Matrix and has become too big of an issue to handle, Babyface has no choice but to accept Neo's offer, and plugs him into the Matrix for his final boss battle with Smith. Despite having Neo outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1, Smith chooses to fight Neo alone, as he foresaw his victory with the Oracle's sight and is getting cocky, commencing a fight sequence featuring classic Matrix choreography and more distractingly bad CGI. The fight sequence also features Smith flying through the air like Neo, because as a result of having a piece of Neo's code and the Oracle's sight, Smith has activated God mode the same way Neo did at the end of the first movie, while at the bottom of a crater they created themselves, which isn't even that crazy given everything that happens during the scene. Smith stands over a battered and beaten Neo, a position he foresaw himself in thanks to the Oracle's sight, and in an effort to remember what he was supposed to say for his cool bad guy final monologue, Smith says,
"Everything that has a beginning has an end, Neo."
Which, along with being the only time Smith refers to Neo as Neo outside the interrogation scene in the first movie, is exactly what the Oracle said during her final interaction with Neo.
Everything that has a beginning has an end.
Cluing Neo in that the Oracle's still inside Smith and that everything is going according to plan. This also explains why the Oracle gave herself up to Smith, as it was her destiny to help Neo during the scene, receiving a surge of energy from learning that all is lost. Neo gets up one last time and baits Smith into assimilating him, a trick that would prove to be Smith's downfall, as a literal surge of energy from Babyface kills Smith and everyone he assimilated. This includes Neo himself, as the machines lay his body down gently and keep their word of stopping their attack on Zion. It is also hinted that Morpheus and Niobe will get back together, but considering Jada Pinkett Smith's propensity for cheating, I doubt it'll last. With the film's conclusion, it is revealed during a conversation between the Oracle and the Architect that along with the Matrix having been restored, that the newest version, that being version 4, will allow people to leave the Matrix if and when they so choose, as it's Babyface's way of repaying Neo for saving the Matrix from Smith. But considering the fact that only 1% of people didn't believe in version 3 of the Matrix, and with there being no indication that this percentage will be any higher for version 4, this is a pretty f***ed up ending, as it means that 99% of people will continue to live their lives as slaves and be fed the liquefied remains of other humans. This ending also contradicts what Morpheus said during the first movie a second time, because along with it being impossible that Morpheus was saved by a previous version of Neo, the prophecy that the one would end the war and the Matrix only ended up being half true, because even though people now have a choice to leave the Matrix if and when they so choose, it's a choice that only 1% of its residents can and ever will make, making this change pretty goddamn insignificant. Man, these sequels really are a mess, aren't they? Well, let's hope that Matrix Resurrections is better. And that's it, ladies and gents. Everything you need to know before watching Matrix Resurrections. So if you made it to this point in my video, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like, and comment on it as well because it helps me and my channel a lot. And if you'd like to watch my future videos, please subscribe if you haven't already. So yeah, this is it for this video, and until next time, provided there is a next time, for any of us.